Thanks. Oh yeah, thanks. Let's see. Um, I noticed that, Elizabeth, this is for you. When I clicked on the link in our calendar invite, it still goes to like an old notes page. So,
Okay, I'll double check that. Thank you for letting me know.
or at least the calendar invite that I had. Maybe mine's wrong. Let's see. I had a really exciting, fun meeting with, I don't want to mess up his name, Tobias Augsburger. I'm totally messing it up. Um, Jonathan, you might know him. I think he's joined some of your events that you're
I
doing.
do.
Yeah, he just started a new job and he was so gracious to give me some of his time. He's been working in this exact area for so long, I think, at least 5 years, maybe longer, with open sustainable technology and some other projects that he's been working on. Um, the reason I was excited to talk to him was because when I looked at the Open Sustainable Technology site, they had looked like hundreds of open source projects that he had curated and sort of assigned to the climate action SDG. And I was like, oh, this is great. We can learn from this and take this and help figure out how to make a process around this, and have something to like, build off and maybe prototype some of the stuff um, that Remy and others have talked about working on. We would have like a whole set of example projects, real projects that we could apply some of these ideas to. And he seemed really excited about that. I think one of his main challenges is kind of marketing. He helped find all these projects and did a lot of work to find them. And, he wants people to discover them, to have more resources provided for them, have users and contributors, join these projects. So anyway, talking to him, I opened a ticket in our UWGU and SDG um, GitHub project and just put in all the notes from that meeting. But one of the takeaways for me is that they have over 2,500 projects. Each of those projects was reviewed by about two people. Um, and they were looking for like a clear statement that the project is following environmental purposes or goals. And he said their review is actually really quick. They just kind of do a manual assessment, like, is there an open source license? Is the project active? And then is there a README that addresses the topic? Um, and yeah, so I think he has just a wealth of information to share with us about, how he did this in this particular thing, and for this particular subject. And another thing that he talked through is one of the challenges that I'm seeing over and over again is that something like climate action, um, yes, I think it's SDG 13 maybe is climate action, but then so many of the projects address so many of the other SDGs as well. There's clean water, clean energy, and just so many other places where those projects also fit in other bins, even though they're also with climate action. I'm seeing that with health too. It's like wellness and health and well-being can also be addressed with clean water and so many other places as well. So it's how do we um, figure out the best way to map these things? Um, so yeah, if you want, are you able to link to that? Oh, you did. Perfect. Thanks. Yeah, so people can read along and I'm gonna try to get him to come talk with us. But he's very supportive of the work that we're doing and excited to collaborate. And so just wanted to let everyone know that that's something that I hope to move forward with. Maybe we can prototype just getting our JSON file or our cookie cutter, to update his 2,500 repos with a simple README or a simple JSON. Um, so yeah, that's something that I was thinking about and working on while I was sick. I was so excited to meet with him. I was like, I'm just gonna meet. And yeah, he was really cool. So fun to connect. Any questions or thoughts about that? All right.
Hi,
And
hi,
oh, go ahead.
David. Yeah, I just might have a little update for the group for everyone who was around the last time. I know Cassie did raise a point to start a practitioner guide, right? So I took that up and I spoke to Dawn about it. She let me know that there is a template for practitioner guides in CHAOSS, and when I sent in and I opened up an issue, it happened to be that the guide we are requesting does not fit the type of guides that we currently have in CHAOSS. And she said that the data science working group are looking to tag or name other types of guides something else. They've really not figured it out yet, but they are calling it the expert guide at the moment. So that's the link to the issue there. And I think they would need thoughts from everyone if anyone is interested to take a look at that. So not a very serious update, but I wanted everyone to be aware of that as well.
Perfect. Thanks for that update. That's great. I'm glad to see that that's moving ahead. I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, I think Dawn had like mentioned this. Thank you, Mary Blessing. Dawn had mentioned this to me at the first demo as well. With the expert guides. So
Okay.
we can maybe frame as well, like participate in framing so that it fits into our context and like what we're trying to do. I think I see Dawn's
Yeah.
comments.
Yeah, she did comment sometime yesterday. Yeah.
One other thing that I had, update that I had was we are still moving forward with our hackathon. I'm excited that the GW students all on their own decided to pick the UN SDGs as like the kind of the core around their hackathon. It's a health-based hackathon. But they're using the SDGs is kind of the defining of each of the tracks. So that's exciting, and I'm going to do a workshop to introduce the SDGs to all the participants. And it's students from all around the DMV. And I think they have over 180 students who have registered for it. So I'm really excited for that. And working towards that and the linkage between the UN SDGs and open source, just making that even stronger. And yeah, I'm going to try to we have a problem statement, and I'm going to see if we can push along some of Remy's work towards like a health workflow specifically. So that'll be fun to see how far we get in a hackathon. I haven't done a hackathon before myself, so I'm very excited and looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's usually fun. Is the event going to be streamed?
No, it's just going to be an in-person event at GW Engineering School. Sorry.
Okay, so I think the only thing that I have, like, it's the what I think I shared this with you via DM as well. she had done a presentation on how she maps like Zephyr, like the Linux Foundation project, to SDGs. So I talked to her about this group. So I was going to invite her maybe in our next meeting. So maybe we could set a timeline for inviting both the person you had talked to and Kate as well.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'll invite him. He's so busy. I'm not optimistic he's gonna be able to make it. But I'll invite him for sure. And yeah, please invite Kate. That would be great.
Yeah, I think I see Remy dropping something in the chat and the notes about the UN-SDG Sorting Hat form.
Yeah, and Remy, I saw that you did your do you want to follow up on the Linux summit, I think it was, panel that you were talking about?
Right, right. Yeah, so we last minute, the team decided that we would try and put in a call for proposal for the Open Source Summit North America. The CFP closed on Sunday. We don't work on the weekend, so we on Friday at the end of the day put out a call and said if anyone wants to join this panel, we're going to try and put a panel together to talk about the connection between the UN SDGs and the CHAOSS community. I posted a thread in the UN-SDG Slack channel. It ended up being that we did submit something, the title I'm pulling up right now, which I thought was pretty clever that the team put together. This is the working title, Chaos Without Borders, Open Source and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Right now, Sean Goggins is one of the folks on that. Obviously, everything is very up in the air right now with the travel and other functions. So we don't know if we are going to be able to participate or not, but we wanted to submit a call for proposals. And in the event that we cannot participate, we're hopeful that some other members of the CHAOSS community can take over the panel and can present on the work that the working group has been doing. So that's our hope. We've still got some time to see how things shake out. We are hopeful that we will get to participate, but if we can't, we will figure out how to move forward with that. But we wanted to put something in, and if we have to cancel, then we have to cancel. If we have to pivot, we can pivot. But it's better to put in something than to not have the opportunity to share all the great work this group is doing, because we're really proud of the people who are showing up and excited for the potential of the work that's being done here.
Awesome, Remy. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And it's a good forcing function to have something on the calendar too. I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking and not enough working. I'm hoping the students will bail me out in the hackathon.
I think Remy had put something about the code. Jason, are you the one like the UN-SDG Sorting Hat thing?
Yes. If there's anything else you want to cover on the agenda first, by all means. But we have a little bit of a demo ready for everyone today that we wanted to share.
I don't have
think
anything else. That sounds great.
Yeah, I think I don't have anything else myself. So I think that's the only topic left, except the reminder that daylight savings is coming. And I think this meeting has moved. Or maybe Elizabeth, you want to share that?
Yeah, it's that time of year that things go crazy and yeah. So just a reminder that if you're not in a place that does daylight saving, just keep an eye on the calendar. Yeah, and just hug your community managers.
And I don't see Michael Downey on from the UN, but last time he mentioned that the Auspice for Good conference is going to happen again. It's going to change its name to UN Open Source Week. And he said, don't book your flight, but do book your hotel room if it's cancelable for June 10th to the June 16th to the 20th. I think it's going to be extended for a whole week. So that's the time, but it's not quite finalized yet. So we'll look for that word coming out soon.
Yeah, and they released like a report recently from the last 2 weeks. So maybe I could just find the link and share it here if people want to read as well.
Yeah, and I'm very excited about that. I'm planning on going, so hope to see a bunch of you there. All right, over to you, Remy. I'm very excited about a demo.
So, actually, as a little bit of background, to give folks a recap, we had in the past working group meetings talked about the code JSON generator project that we had been using to generate metadata for open source repositories within the CMS and the federal ecosystem. Our team has continued to build out on those, and when we shared it, the group here sounded like we thought there could be some good use cases of forking that and using it to gather metadata about projects. So our team had a little bit of a hack session one day, and I will turn it over to Natalia to talk a little bit about that experience and share some of the results.
Okay, cool. I'm going to share my screen. Oops. Okay, cool. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Natalia. I'm one of the US Digital Core Fellows that work with the OSPO. And today I'm going to show you kind of a prototype that the OSPO team and I have been working on to see how we can kind of collect metadata for the UN-SDG projects. So over here is our code.json generator site, where we used an open source project called form.io to create this form where users can input information about their software projects. And so this is a way for us to collect metadata. And then once users fill out this form and hit the submit button, this creates a code.json file, which contains all the metadata on the software project. So we wanted to do something pretty similar using form.io for the UN SDG projects, where we want users to go through all of the SDG goals, all 17 of them, and answer questions about each goal and whether that pertains to their project. So we made a very simple prototype using form.io to kind of see how this form would look like. So for instance, this is kind of what we were thinking. So first we have our main SDG goal. Does your project pertain or address poverty? So if it is true, then that's when we bring up the targets that and users can select which targets are relevant to the project. And then we notice that some targets also have some indicators. So if I click on 1.1, there is an indicator for for the 1.1 target. Yes. And then so users can just select which goal, targets, and indicators pertain to their project. And then when they click the submit button, it gives us this data object over here that we can use to produce our own, to gather this metadata. Yeah, and I think that's all that I had to share with this form. Yeah, so open to any feedback, any thoughts on whether we think this is helpful, and if so, the OSPO can move forward with developing this. But this is the simple prototype that we have for now that we just made using the form.io form builder playground that they have on their website. I'm gonna send this over here. But yes, open to any thoughts and comments.
Can you send the JSON file that you passed to that too, Natalia?
Yes.
Probably small enough to fit in the chat, but if it's not, we'll commit it to the repo.
Okay, give me a second. I think Dina was working on that, and that is still a work in progress. Let's see.
All good. I see Ruth's hand while you're figuring that out.
Okay.
Thank you, Natalia, for the demo. This looks great. I think the only maybe question I have is like before it generates like this metadata, like is there any review process that would happen to actually identify that that project is what it is like you know
Right.
saying it is?
So, the idea right now is this is a manual collection. So the answer to that question simply at the moment is no. However, we were looking at the Swagger API documentation for the UN-SDG goals, and there are API endpoints for specific data that goes to the SDGs if you're using it. So we could use these API URLs as a way to automatically detect whether somebody is involved in an SDG project. That being said, we think the Venn diagram of people using the API and the people who don't know what SDGs they're using are basically very separate, right? The chances of someone not knowing what SDG you're in while using this API are almost zero. So it's not super helpful probably for identifying where people are at. We were thinking it more so is for people who are not sure what SDGs it might apply to. So you could use a form like this to say, like, we think we're poverty related, and if you think you're specifically related to any one of these stats, let us know, and then we can say you might want to include these indicators here or there. So it's meant to be sort of a sorting hat, so people can say my open source project does air quality, or my open source project does economic equality, or people can self-identify, self-select, and then it would say, hey, here's the DPG standard that you should go check out, and here are the indicators you should go to check out.
Okay, I think that kind of answers my question. It would be great to have a version of this that that gets like also for people that and I think that's one of the reasons why we have this group. So, yeah, but this is great start.
And there's also a badge that people can put on their repositories that we can use to search for repos that have these that are SDG projects. But again, that Venn diagram is two circles. Like if you have a badge that says you're an SDG project, you probably know which one of the indicators you're in. Jonathan has a hand.
Yeah, this is awesome. Is it related in any way to CodeMeta? Or are you aware of the CodeMeta project?
Oh, yes. We are aware of CodeMeta. Code.json is the federal government's version of CodeMeta.
Okay.
And Software Heritage is using CodeMeta as their standard. We are hoping that, so our code metadata is statutorily defined, right? Like, well, it's defined by executive order. So there are rules and laws and policies that say what should be there, right? But we want to create some kind of converter potentially that will allow us to convert between code.json and code meta and public code.yaml. So we are trying to make it so that our metadata is harmonizable with all of them. Like we have all of the metadata fields that all three standards would use as optional. And then we could hopefully up jump that to JSON LD and like be in the proper code meta approach. But we're going to solve for our federal standard first and then build more on top of it is the hope. That's the plan.
That's awesome. And is there like the idea to build some automation into this eventually? Or maybe build a model around it so that it's less asks of the maintainers themselves, I'd say?
Yeah, we actually have an autogen repo. Maybe Sachin or somebody else can put that in the chat. We developed some GitHub actions that will automatically send pull requests updating that metadata. So the idea is like you can either create it with the form and manually create it, or we have GitHub actions that will send PRs that will add rudimentary data and fill in where we can. There's some really clever stuff in there, but we're looking to continue building out that suite of tools as well.
That's amazing. Well done, guys. This is fantastic.
We just shipped it like what, Friday of last week, everybody? So this is like hot off the press, brand new stuff that we are just starting to experiment with. David.
So this is awesome. I love it. And every time I've ever delivered anything like this, it's like to a customer or user, they're like, all of a sudden, your brain explodes and you're like, oh my God, but can it do this or this? You start to add all these different requirements to it. So that's what I'm about to do. Um, One thing I know from DPG Alliance, they say highly relevant to an SDG. So I'm wondering about the choice of language of pertain. Um,
Yeah.
just just a thought. Kind
Plus,
of, I think you want more. You want less false positives, I guess, maybe. So making a little bit higher standard.
yeah. So 100% agree. And our goal with doing this is that we know that GWU is going to be doing this hackathon in 2 weeks, right? So our goal was to at least get a skeleton up to say, like, here is how you would structure the JSON. Here's how it looks in the sandbox. There is an API that can pull stuff in. This is where the descriptions go. This could be a great hackathon project for students to sink their teeth into and continue developing. So we were hoping to just, as a working group member, get a straw man set up to say, this is
Okay,
what it
perfect.
could look like. This is a good starting point. Here are your ingredients, like go forth and, build off of it. And, I'm very happy that we're just sharing the sandbox today, because before we did a lot of like deep development, we wanted to check in with the group and see, like, do you think that this approach of like using a form and going through and clicking each one, and like, is that the kind of user experience we think? There needs to be some more user testing and validation, and any expert opinions from the group here would be super helpful. But before we got too deep in development mode, we just wanted to say, here are the tools, here are how they work, here's how it could look, here's a sandbox representation of it. We only did goal 1, but there are 17 of them. If you want to fill in the other 16 and polish it and make sure all the language looks good, here's a repo, here's some URLs, here's some documentation.
Okay, awesome. That's amazing. Thank you so much. This is, yes. Okay, so now I get to do the work. I get it.
Yeah, like,
You made the sandbox available. That's incredible. That's really cool. Do you have um, a thought on, especially since my understanding of like your US government focused standards of how to share this to maintainers that are not, US based, that don't care about the US government standards? Do you have like thoughts on, do we just need to do a lot of work and get some of those other pieces up, or do you think they'd still find value?
You just swap out one JSON file for another. So the forms, they just accept JSON. That's what they speak. So the JSON we're feeding them is the one for generating a code.json file for repository metadata. But the JSON on the side of the screen that you're viewing right now is the metadata for generating a form that has all the United Nations SDG goals in them. But if there's other metadata like the DPG standard, for example, like you could put those in there. Like any JSON file you want to throw at this thing, it will render it as a form like you see in the middle.
Gotcha. Okay, super cool. Thanks so much.
And that's form.io. Super shout out to form.io. Like, we didn't build that. We are utilizing that. Is an open source platform that's used by other governments as well, not just the United States. So we are really thrilled that we can leverage upstream tech like that. That's the open source way.
I love it. That is well done. Thanks for the demo. Thanks for doing the work too. That's really cool.
Big shout out to Natalia and Dina and the team. They really worked hard to get this out the door in time for the meeting today. So we're excited to share it, and we hope it's useful for the hackathon and will give us a great story if and when we get the opportunity to share it by the time we get to OSSNA. That's a great example of a public-private partnership working with academia and with the industry to develop tools to solve and address real-world problems that solve a problem in the US and potentially internationally and connects all this metadata together. I think it's a wonderful example. And there's still some work to do, but we've got a few of the pieces here.
I know you guys said you don't work on weekends, but if anybody wants to come on March 1st, GW.
I mean, in a personal capacity, if I wanted to come as a member of the local community, because I don't have to travel very far, that could be a possibility. I might follow up with you after this meeting to talk about how non-students participate in your hackathons.
It's all, well, we're looking for judges, we're looking for mentors. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities. We'd love to have you if you were free.
We'll follow up after. Jonathan.
Unrelated, but sort of related. Form.io, since you're here, where does it store the form results to? Because I'm looking at the link you sent. This looks fantastic.
Good question. I think it's more of just a sandbox so that you can play around with it. Our code JSON generator repo lets you save the response locally when you click the button. So you can download the JSON file that it generates. That's how we do it.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks. Definitely going to use this tool. Appreciate you bringing it.
All right, I don't have anything else on the agenda. Ruth, do you have anything else?
Nope, I don't.
Let's go out on a high note. Give some time back. Thank you all. Really appreciate it. That was fantastic, Remy and Natalia. Thank you so much. All right. Take care, everybody.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.